Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin, I should warn you that some of you may find what you are about to hear rather disturbing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Until Dawn podcast. My name is Coy, and with me is my wife, Felicia.
Hello, everybody.
All right. So, I guess spooky season is upon us. It's the end of August.
I always say it starts whenever we get back from vacation.
Right. I think that's just
probably early, but I try to rush it.
Might be wishful thinking.
Yeah. I don't want it too soon. We always take vacation in August.
Right.
But the last day of vacation, I'm like, okay, now it's fall.
Right.
Even though it's August.
Yeah, it's still 80 degrees around here, but I like to think that end of August is the beginning of spooky season. When they start putting Halloween decorations and the Halloween candy. That's the only time I don't complain about them putting out anything too early.
Right, because they put Christmas out usually before Halloween gets here. At least they do here.
Yeah, it's usually the end of October.
Yeah. They
put all the Halloween stuff on clearance, which means it's time to buy. And then they start, shoving Christmas down our throats.
The Christmas smut.
Yes, all that Christmas propaganda. So what do we got going on? It's spooky season. It's busy time.
So this weekend we have the paranormal campfire. That is with Unknown Paranormal, which is a team local here to the St. Robert, Waynesville, Fort Leonard Wood area. And we work with them. It's taking place in Windyville, Missouri. I have not been there. You haven't either?
No, I haven't either.
I'm really excited because they do a lot of investigations there, and they've had some really cool things happen.
It's a really interesting place from what I've heard. Like I said, we haven't had the opportunity to go out there yet, but it's one of those locations that, and this is always exciting to me, where you not only are investigating somewhat inside, but you're investigating the outside as well.
Right. So
many locations are restricted to an indoor, inside environment, and this is not one of those.
Yeah. This one's going to be a free event, and I actually posted the link on our Until Dawn podcast page so that people can go and see. But we're going to have a campfire. What else? It's going to be roasting. Is that right? I don't want to say we're roasting marshmallows. We may not be.
We may not. I don't know about the marshmallows.
I'm bringing marshmallows.
BYOM. Bring your own marshmallows just in case. You don't want to be the one guy that shows up or gal that shows up and doesn't have marshmallows.
But we're going to be just kind of sit around the campfire, tell some ghost stories. There'll be a chance for people to ask questions to the investigators that are there. They're going to do short investigations in different areas. So we'll break off during the night, go to different locations, investigate, just hang out at the fire.
Right. It's going to, if you have any type of interest in the paranormal or you're wanting to kind of get to know other people that are involved in the paranormal, this is a great opportunity.
Plus, it's free.
Yeah, it's a free event.
How often do you get to do free paranormal events?
Perfect way to, start off the spooky season.
Yeah. The address, it's the Windyville Cozy Cottages and Store. Address 2 Moon Valley Road. That kind of sounds creepy, right? Windyville, Missouri. So people should come out and meet everybody from the team.
The place is exciting, and the event's going to be exciting.
Plus, it's a campfire. Everyone loves campfires.
Right.
It is non-alcoholic, no alcohol.
Right.
Let me put that out there.
Yeah, it's BYOM, not BYOB.
Right. So what else do we have? I think that's the main thing. That's the next thing we have coming up.
Right. I know going forward from this episode, we're going to be doing a lot of states, locations, legends.
Yeah, I had this idea. I was like, why don't we do, start with each state and do, a legend or a haunting in that state? I do kind of have, a list of each state already, but that's, not set in stone. So
right.
I would like to get people's suggestions for their state, if they have a certain haunting or urban legend they want us to cover, to email us or contact us through Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
Right, yeah. If you have something that your state is known for, or maybe
not known for, but you would like people to know about it.
yeah, if you have like a local thing or, just something that doesn't get brought up a lot and you never really hear anything about it, but it's local to your state, so to speak, yeah, definitely let us know. We'd love to hear what you have to say about it, as well as do an episode on it. So tonight we have a really interesting story from Alabama, but before we get into that, let's dive into some spooky scoops.
You've heard of this big cat that's supposed to be around? Of course. Some say it's a puma, others a giant ape, and still others say it's the sukara. A sukara? It's a new kind of animal to me. That's a famous jungle demon that tears living animals to shreds with its claws and then feeds upon them. Has been known to attack humans also. Hasn't so far, I hope. No. But I'm sure it will.
Alright, so my story comes from Coast to Coast, and it talks about a DNA study finds one theory of the Loch Ness Monster plausible. The results of an environmental DNA study of Loch Ness will officially be released in a few weeks. The scientists behind the project, Professor Neil Gamel of New Zealand, collected 250 water samples. Of those 250 samples collected, there was 500 million DNA sequences found. On Wednesday, Gemmell was quoted as saying, "There has been over 1,000 reported sightings of something in Loch Ness, which has driven this notion of a monster being in the water." He said, "From those sightings, there were about 4 main explanations about what has been seen. After this research essentially discounted most of those theories, however, one theory remains plausible." So this really kind of puts a little more science behind what has been seen, and hopefully in a few weeks we'll have some sort of answer, maybe.
A few weeks. Is that how quick they test DNA? It's like a couple weeks.
Oh, I think all the testing's already been done from what I read.
I think it's done in like 30 minutes. It is on CSI.
Well, if only everything went as fast as CSI on TV. No, I think the report is actually going to be released in a few weeks.
So what did they're just taking DNA out of the water?
So they took 250 water samples, and they extracted DNA from those water samples, which resulted in like 500
that
different...
grosses me out. That's disgusting.
What, the water samples?
DNA in water samples.
Well, just like, how they can pull DNA off of like a glass that you drink from, or a mouth swab, like on Live PD.
Yeah.
So they sequenced 500 million different DNA samples, so to speak, from that, and then started making cuts as to, obviously it's not some fish or something like that, or so hopefully we'll have some sort of answer in the following weeks. What do you have?
Okay, so mine is about Loch Ness too, which is kind of weird. We both got that. June 27th, a boat skipper named Mike Bell, he was taking a group of tourists out on the water, and he believes that his sonar picked up the Loch Ness Monster. It was said to be 115 feet beneath the surface. He said he circled around again to scan the same area, but it was gone, of course. They estimate that the size of the object was about 25 feet in length. He was quoted as saying, "An object of that size, I would think, is way too big for the normal species in the loch. It must have been about 5 or 6 minutes we spent trying to pick up this creature again." Which is crazy. It can be that big and then it just disappears. I mean, I don't know how big it is. The Loch Ness. What is it?
Loch Ness Monster?
No,
Nessie?
No, the lake. It's called Loch Ness Lake.
It's Loch
Is that
Ness.
right?
Loch
Oh,
is like the... But yeah, it's interesting, and that's been an ongoing thing with Nessie, is it's in this lake that supposedly has no outlet, and yet
She's the Bigfoot of the Loch Ness.
right.
I'm gonna make a T-shirt. Nessie, the Bigfoot of the Loch Ness.
It's an ongoing thing where it's centralized to this one area, but yet there's still no concrete evidence.
Right.
And then things like that happen, like, someone picks it up on sonar and, never again.
Right. There and gone.
I wonder do people actually know how deep it is?
I know. I'm sure they do.
Because it goes pretty far down, but yet, they're not able to. I mean, then there's how many TV shows and everything else has been out there trying to find it.
I honestly don't know if I've watched many shows on it, so I really have no knowledge, to be honest.
Well, you're not really into the whole cryptid thing.
I'm not. I'm getting really distracted by this clickbait, though. It says, deadly sex habit is killing off our seniors. Do not let me click that.
No.
I'm getting distracted by it. Okay, switch.
All
Does
right.
it? Aren't you interested?
No, not like in the least. But all right, on that note, let's dive into our main topic of the night on a completely different realm and talk about the Dead Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama.
A sudden draft from a window that was supposed to have been closed. A chill at the back of the neck. Groans, creaks, and bumps in the night. Man has always been frightened by the dark. Troubled by noises just beyond the reach of lights. Occurrences just beyond the reach of understanding.
So we're going to be discussing the Dead Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama. I actually had some clients just move down that area. I guess it's been like a year. I should send them there.
Right. Go get us some evidence and some pictures.
They would never do that.
Most people wouldn't do that.
No, I'm going to try though. It's not actually called Dead Children's Playground. It's actually Drost Park, Drost. But Dead Children's Playground sounds so much cooler.
Yeah, no one's putting up a sign that says Dead Children's Playground, even in a cemetery.
Right. It's been said that it's located in the center of Maple Hill Cemetery, but after looking up stuff, I think it's actually adjacent to it. It's not in the center of the cemetery.
Right. That makes sense too, based on kind of like what it looks like. As soon as you see a picture of it, you can tell there's no way this is in the dead center of the playground.
Right.
Or center of the cemetery.
Did you know what I learned? This is kind of off topic a little. There's a difference between a graveyard and a cemetery. Do you know the difference?
Well, don't leave us hanging. What's the difference?
A cemetery is just a cemetery, like out. A graveyard is in a churchyard. So churches have graveyards.
And everyone else just has a cemetery.
Right.
Oh.
I've seen it on Facebook.
Oh, it must be true.
Right. So the Dead Children's Playground, it was built in 1985. In 2007, it was actually going to be raised like as in plowed down, because they were trying to make more room for burial plots for this cemetery. But people actually spoke out against it. People in the community, they didn't want it to be done.
That's interesting. I did kind of see some of that, and I saw that too, that the city kind of took it a step further because they'd actually removed some of the equipment and stuff like that, and they actually almost overnight went in and updated some of the equipment, kind of replaced some of the swings and stuff like that,
right,
and put a little bit of money into it, which is good. I mean, that's people taking care of their
preservation is
history.
Important, right? Some of the claims of ghosts at the cemetery. Do you have? It's said to be most active between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m., which I feel like that's a lot of things.
Everything's active during that time.
Swings moving on their own. Ghost lights or orbs seen moving around the park. Some look as if they are sitting on top of the equipment like the slides and then sliding down. Sounds of children playing, laughing, and screaming. kind of like our
you
son in the
I was
background
gonna say,
right
if
now.
you hear a child screaming and laughing and playing in the background of this, it's our son playing Fortnite.
Yeah.
He has headphones on, so
He's very
it
excited
literally
right now.
sounds like he's in the room with us.
There's sounds of footsteps running through the park as if children are running around and playing. And then the sounds of mothers crying and calling for their children.
It's interesting, especially a lot of it. I mean, it's one of those places, one, it's going to be hard to investigate. So a lot of these I feel like would have to be stuff that individuals have seen. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to replicate any of this stuff or done a lot of investigations out there, because it is in a cemetery that is currently being used by the city.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you have for, as in, why is this haunted? Is it just because it's in a cemetery?
I think that's
or...
probably some of it. The creep factor. There's a few legends that go with why it's haunted. In the 1960s, there was a series of child abductions that took place in Huntsville. This is a story. None of the children were being found, like dead or alive. They were just disappearing. At that time, there was a quarry located there, which is what the playground has limestone on 3 sides.
Okay.
So the quarry had been closed and it was starting to become overgrown. A guy had been walking through there in the middle of the night or day, I don't know, and he found a small skull that was laying in that quarry area. So after that, they started searching the land, and they found several skeletons and decomposing bodies. The corpses show signs of being tied up, malnourished, the wounds that had started to heal, meaning that they were probably hurt, were healing, and then they were murdered. It's said that once they found the bodies, then all of a sudden the disappearances stopped. And many of the children that were found were eventually buried in Maple Hill Cemetery. Now here's the kicker. There's no proof of any of that ever happening. So that's like urban legend.
Right.
Classic.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say, because I found a lot of the exact same stuff, but then as I went back trying to find news articles, searching during that time period, disappearances during the 60s in Huntsville, there's nothing.
Right. So what I did find, I'll say, is in 1962 in Midfield, Alabama, there was a 5th grader named Larry Wayne Thomas and his friend. They were lured into a car during a Little League baseball practice. This guy told him, "Hey, come with me. I'll give you money and you can go buy some soda." So him and the 2 boys went with a stranger, and he pulled up at a gas station. He gave the friend money and sent him into the convenience store to get the soda. Larry stayed in the car. The man drove off with him. 5 days later, his body was found wrapped in a blanket and buried in a shallow grave. Sounds familiar, right, to what the legend is? He was found behind the kidnapper's house. The kidnapper was Michael Anthony Mayolas.
Sounds good to me.
And that was where he was taken from Mayfield, Alabama, which is Midfield, Alabama, which is 108 miles from Huntsville. His body was found in, I'm going to say this wrong, Wanatanga? I don't know. Wanata?
I got nothing for you there.
His body was found 64 miles from Huntsville.
Oh, wow.
So Huntsville is kind of in the center of where all this happened. So I feel like some of the legend could have came from that. So, that is a big story to happen, especially in the 1960s. A crime was bad back then, but I like to think it wasn't so bad. But this guy, kidnapping kids and murdering them and burying them, that story is really going to travel. And with Huntsville being there in the middle, I can see how people would think that's what happened.
Yeah, it's the perfect story for this legend to be based on.
Right.
It involves children missing. Some people are going to kind of know what happened. People aren't. People are going to make up their own story of what happened.
Right. And another thought is that it's children buried in the cemetery, and their spirits are coming over to play on the playground.
Right.
a lot of those children are thought to be victims of the Spanish flu outbreak. It was like huge in Huntsville. It's like in 1918. Let's see. I have September 28th, 1918. The very first case was reported in Huntsville of the Spanish flu. October 5th, so like a week later, there was more than 1,100 cases reported.
Oh, wow.
By October 13th, every druggist, which I guess would be like a pharmacist,
Right.
physician, that's a druggist is something else now, I feel like.
Yeah, you don't want to be considered
Right.
called a druggist.
Yeah. All druggists, physicians, and prescription clerks, except for one, had the Spanish flu. Literally one left in the city.
Oh, wow. That's crazy and stuff. I mean,
Right.
but, the area, the climate and everything else
Right, it's
really
just
kind of leans
insane.
into that.
It's just hard to imagine that happening now. But it said there's an unknown number of actual deaths in Huntsville because it is literally impossible to count the amount of people that died within that. So that's when a lot of the children came in and had been buried there. So I think that history, that's creepy.
Right.
So I think a lot of people associate that with the cemetery too. Or the playground.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's with that many children being buried there, it's that in itself would lead to the children, to the playground being haunted.
Right.
Even without this whole child kidnapping and murder story.
Yeah. My thoughts on it are that, well, it used to be a quarry in that area, so there's limestone everywhere. That's said to boost paranormal activity.
I mean, it's like almost like you would call the perfect storm.
Right.
You have, a supposed child murder that could be tied into that location, the Spanish flu outbreak, the limestone, the graveyard or
Right.
cemetery, because it's not attached to
Oh,
the
yeah,
church.
the cemetery.
It's literally the perfect storm
It's
for
like
a haunting.
just a good story,
Right.
really.
And, Maple Hill Cemetery itself kind of leads to this as well.
Yeah, it's actually one of the most haunted cemeteries in Alabama. Actually, I think the U.S. So maybe we should touch base on that a little.
Right.
Just because it's connected, they're kind of together.
Yeah, because it was founded in 1822. It reaches over 100 acres.
Right. It's Alabama's oldest and largest cemetery. It was sold to the city by Leroy Pope, who is considered the father of Huntsville. So the founder of Huntsville. And at that point, it was only 2 acres of land.
And it's old enough that originally it was just called the burial ground.
Yeah, in 1901, it was when it was actually given its name, Maple Hill Cemetery. The oldest intact grave marker is for an infant named Mary Frances Atwood. She was buried there in 1820. Between the Civil War and the 1918 Spanish flu outbreak, that's when the cemetery grew quickly. That's when it went from 2 acres to now over 100 acres. So famous or notable residents, we'll say, of the cemetery. There's 5 governors of Alabama that are buried there. Leroy Pope, who was the father of Huntsville. There's 187 Confederate soldiers, a known amount of Union soldiers, 5 United States senators, 10 United States representatives. So that's a lot. I mean, those are
Right.
like the VIPs, right, of Alabama.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the ghosts of Maple Hill Cemetery.
Sure.
The most famous ones. Governor Thomas Bibb. His ghostly figure is seen standing at his grave, and a carriage being pulled by 4 black horses is seen with him inside the carriage. That's a good one.
That's quite elaborate.
Right, that's awesome. Businessman Albert Russell Erskine. He was president of Studebaker Auto. He was civil leader, president of Notre Dame University's lay board. He shot himself after Studebaker went into a receivership after the Great Depression. He was entombed in a mausoleum there in Maple Hill, and it's said that an angel appears on top of his mausoleum at night. These are like fancy ghosts, right?
Right. Yeah, that's not your common haunts.
Right. Another one is Philip Flanagan, second husband of Miss High Brown Ruette, I believe is how you pronounce it. Her real name is, are you ready? Elizabeth Dell Gibbons Flanagan Jeffries High Brown Ruette.
I can see where they go with the shortened version of that.
Right. She is the Black Widow of Hazel Green. She's said to have killed, don't quote me on it, but I think 8 husbands. Which explains her very long name.
Right.
His spirit roams the cemetery, seeking answers and not knowing why he's dead. Oh, her 6 husbands, that's how many she killed.
Oh.
I just see. The last one is Colonel William Hunley. His spirit stands at his grave, located by the cemetery office, in a Confederate uniform. Sometimes he is seen with his father, which is interesting to me. And he never speaks, but he does nod to people as they're walking into the office of the cemetery.
Very interesting. So, what do you think? Do you think Dead Children Playground, haunted by murdered
Dead
children, or more likely Spanish flu related?
More likely paranoia from the cemetery. I think it's more people. It's a good story. People, the cemetery is said to be haunted, and so why wouldn't the playground? Or it just makes a good story.
Yeah. I think there's more evidence supporting it's related to the Spanish flu victims rather than murdered children.
Yeah, obviously.
I mean, it's right there. If the cemetery is going to be haunted, there's no reason why, the playground wouldn't be haunted. And if you're, a child spirit, you're going to be drawn to the playground.
That's true. Shoot, if you're an adult, you would be drawn to the playground.
Now, that's not to say that, there's not a breeze in the air and it's moving the swings.
That's my thing, the swings. Like,
So,
that's always...
if you thought that a swing was haunted every time you saw it moving by itself,
right.
We'd be overpopulated with children spirits.
Right.
But I do think, it's more than likely haunted. There's no reason why it wouldn't be, but I do think it's more Spanish flu related. All right, so I think that pretty much does it for the Dead Children's Playground. Do you have anything else?
No, that's about it.
All right, so we did get a text message after our last episode on the 1941 UFO crash, and I'll read that for you now. It says, "Great episode, guys, and I subscribe to a paranormal unified field theory that would suggest that all things paranormal are tied together. Aliens, UFOs, cryptids like Bigfoot, ghosts, demons. And, of course, he states that everyone knows UFOs are just flying objects, but the main point of that would be, who's piloting that craft. He states that, I believe there are too many credible witnesses in all these different categories to rule them out. What do you all think about a possible paranormal unified field theory that would connect all things paranormal?" And he said, of course, this is from Shaggy. So what do you think about that?
I have to go first.
You have to go first.
No, I agree with them. Yeah, I think that all does fall together. It's kind of like a big broad spectrum of the unknown. And I think a lot of people think that way. Albert Einstein did. Did you know that?
I did not.
He subscribed to that theory, actually. I was reading a story on it like 2 weeks ago. I'm going to have to find it and post it to our page.
Right.
But, hey, if Albert Einstein's for it, Felicia Pittman's for it.
There you go. They go together.
Right. We do have the same hair today. Just saying.
At the moment, yes. No, I can't argue that. It definitely makes sense for there to be kind of like a paranormal ecosystem, so to speak, where everything ties together. There's no argument against it. I mean, it's almost hard to say anything about it. I think it's something that we need to, down the road, do an episode on.
Right. And like I said, I like to say I don't believe in aliens, blah, blah, blah. But how can I not? If I believe in ghosts. Right. I always say that. If I believe in ghosts, I have to believe there's other things out there.
Right. I mean, is it a dimensional thing? Is it, it's a paranormal thing. I mean, really. And so I think we're going to save our thoughts on that.
Yeah, we'll have to do an episode on that.
And touch back on it later on a different episode. So thanks for texting us, and definitely going to be doing an episode on that. Next up, we got an email from Tracy O'Quinn. Said, "Hey guys, just want to let you know I loved your episode about the 1941 UFO crash, and she felt bad for us that we never get emails, so she wanted to let us know. Great.
She's so nice.
Good job on the show. You guys are awesome."
I'm glad she listened to my whining about...
Right?
Everybody should check out... She has a new podcast. It's called The Tracy O Show. Did you mention that?
No, I did not.
So, actually, it's new. Like, just 2 weeks, maybe.
Oh, wow.
So, everybody should check her out. She is awesome. She's like She was the local radio personality here. She's moved on from that, but now she's getting into podcasting, so... I'm hoping to do some things with her in the upcoming months. So
yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. We're gonna try to get together.
She's just awesome. She has the best radio voice, and I'm so jealous of that because I have this voice.
No, your radio voice is great. Best
horrible accent that I have.
Best voice in podcasting.
Shut up.
Everyone
you're
needs
saying
to.
that because you're married to me.
Everyone needs to write in, email,
no,
text
don't.
us, snail mail. Let her know how great her podcasting voice is. No, you can find. I know you can find her show on iTunes. Beyond that, that's where I get the majority of my all my podcasts. So I don't really search too far beyond that. But yeah, definitely subscribe, give it a listen. I'm sure that you guys will enjoy it.
Yes, she is super funny.
All right, so that kind of wraps it up for texts and emails. And if people want to get in touch with us, how can they do that?
Social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all at Until Dawn Podcast.
And if they want to send us an email, it's untildawnpodcast@gmail.com, or you can just send us a text message at 913-703-DAWN. And it doesn't have to be a text message either. You can actually call that number and leave a voicemail, and we'll play it on the episode. I think Jason Kupsik's the only person so far that's done that.
I think so.
But you could be number 2.
But he is our only friend. I believe I said that last time.
Yeah, he did. He did tell us that he's our only friend.
I think I said it.
Oh, it was you?
Yeah.
So you could be number 2 in people that have actually left us a voicemail. And last but not least, please go and rate and review us on iTunes. It does make it easier for other people to find us, and it makes our podcast pop up in searches quicker. And if you want to help out the podcast, that's the easiest way to do it. All right, so until next time, I'm Coy.
I'm Felicia.
And this is Until Dawn.
Hurry back.